And welcome everybody to our Fields and Features segment. I'm your host, Dan, aka Smash-A-Mash, and we're looking at the magnetic environment around Earth and around the Sun. Let's bring this back and show you the last 4 hours of the Space Weather Modeling Framework's model of magnetohydrodynamic pressure surrounding planet Earth to about 12 Earth diameters. It's our geospace magnetosphere movie. Things are pretty calm here, and we've seen a subsiding solar wind. We'll get to that momentarily. First, we'll show you magnetic perturbations on the ground level now that the high-speed coronal hole wind stream has subsided. So not a lot of changes to Earth's B field. What you're seeing here is geospace delta B. That's changes to Earth's B field expressed in nanotesla. That's magnetic flux density on the surface of planet Earth. And this gives you insight into things like the magnetic and geomagnetic pole locations, the dip pole locations, locations of likely aurorae, power line, pipeline, and railroad induction during times of geomagnetic unrest and geomagnetic storm. Seeing some higher readings here, higher lows at least, on the GOES magnetometers. And it's fairly clear sailing in between Earth and Sun at the moment. There's not a whole lot of plasma, although we are expecting a geomagnetic period of unrest late in the day on Monday Universal Time. Also, we're expecting the South Pole heliospheric current sheet to make an appearance here at planet Earth. You can see it rushing past stereo A, which is this little plus sign, and this magnetic data is derived from stereo A. Stereo B also has a magnetometer, and 51 ground-based magnetometers on Earth. It's all part of the National Sunspot Observatory. One of the best predictive features we have is that this magnetic imagery here. Here's the line of sight view of basically the same data. It also shows you the solar magnetogram since we're viewing from the line of sight perspective. You can see this blue line giving us insight into things like the orientation of the sun's fields. Next, the coronal hole line of sight plot, and this gives us probably the best. This might be the best one. I don't know. The top view ecliptic plane field plot and this one are super important. Keep in mind the data is 1 hour and 6 minutes old and can suddenly change. We've got trans-equatorial South Pole oriented coronal holes rotating in here. You can see these red dots. Those are a feature of the South Solar Polar Field migrating to the opposite pole. Over here on the west side, you've got the same thing going on with the North Polar regions. This also shows you the sun's B field in blue. Those are the sun's potential field force lines. The field going through the magnet, the sun's B field. And how about some imagery from the SDO about coronal holes? Here's 193 angstroms. And the geomagnetic unrest period we're expecting late in the day on Monday is from this coronal hole system. It could produce an extended period of high-speed solar wind. We're indeed expecting it to. So sunspot number has not grown since yesterday. We've only really got sunspot 2954 and sunspot 2955. This area up here, just the plage. And this exciting-looking region down here, no umbrae. When we did show prep, likelihood of solar flares has gone up because huge plages, and this is a huge plage down here, huge plages can produce significant flares, and we actually saw a large C-class flare from that area. So take a closer look here at sunspots. Here's the full disk view, 1700 angstroms. Great at showing those dark umbrae of 2954 and 2955. We've got some slowed down imagery here as well. So if you see slowed down imagery, it's because we slowed it down to 10 frames per second instead of 30. So there's a close-up of those two sunspot groups. This thing here never really materialized into a sunspot, just kind of stayed an active region, a plage. So here's a slowed down image, series of images from the SDO, 171 angstroms. And here's this flare. This flare peak flux was about 2140 yesterday, and it was a C5.1. C5.2. It was a C5.2. That was on the GOES 17 long wave X-ray. A great wavelength to view solar flares is 94 angstroms, and you can see that bright spot down there in your lower left. Here's a close-up of that. Great view of that flare from that plage. Not showing up as a sunspot yet. And here's a slowed down series of images in 131 angstroms, the other great wavelength. It takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2. It's ionized iron, if you're wondering, one of the many species of ionized iron followed by the SDO. No spikes in the proton flux, no relativistic particles created, or I'll say associated, with any of those exciting events. And here's the real-time solar wind. Again, we're seeing the coronal hole high-speed stream subside here, now down to about 377 kilometers per second for the solar wind density. Solar wind speed. Solar wind density 5.56. That's not a reference to ammunition. That is just a reference to the solar wind density. 5.56, coincidentally. The solar wind density. Is the sun sending us a signal about things like war in Europe? Next, the KP index at 0. There it is over the past 3 days, each bar representing 3 hours. So really geomagnetic calm conditions here. KP 0 is the status. Let's do a solar system forecast. Here's where stuff is now. And there's where things will be in a week. Mercury speeding past. We'll show you some imagery of that. First, a star chart. This is what's going on above my head in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars, the Moon, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn all rising ahead of the Sun. The blue line there is the galactic plane. We've also shaded the galaxy. The yellow line is the ecliptic, the path the Sun will take across the sky. Here are the coronagraphs. You've got the LASCO C3 on the right, showing Mercury, and the Stereo A Core 2 space weather beacon on the left. Stereo A located here at Lagrange point 5. SOHO LASCO located here at Lagrange point 1. All clear as far as coronal mass ejections. We ain't got none to cover, so we'll close out the video. Thank you for tuning in. Congratulate you on realizing that the channel exists. And I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news.